The closed sky is intended for adult audiences. Listener discretion is advised. The Closed Sky, Part 1. There is charcoal under my fingernails that no amount of washing fully removes. I have stopped noticing it the way you stop noticing most things that are simply true about yourself. 7 years of survey work in the Undercity, and my hands are the record of it. Every wall I have measured, every corridor I have marked, every space I have read and filed and moved on from. Every space, except one. The tangle has been refusing to be mapped for as long as I have been trying. I grew up in it. I know its smell before I know its name on any given morning. 2 years of returning to it with instruments and intention, and it remains the one measurement I cannot close. Though this has not stopped me from pursuing it. It is the 17th beat of Carven. Late in the day by any reckoning, though down here we do not measure by what the sun is doing. I have been at my sectional desk since the 12th, and under my boots, the circle's floor stone carries the accumulated weight of every practitioner who has crossed it today. My Thalen expression reads this the way a physician reads a pulse, not the individual beats, but the pattern of them, the quality, what they suggest about what has been happening in this space and for how long. Thalen is the earth element. It reads stone, soil, the bones of a structure, the memory of pressure applied and released. Every footstep leaves a trace. Every body who has stood in a space changes it, fractionally, permanently. I have spent 7 years letting the city tell me what it remembers, and learning to listen without asking it to repeat itself. The elevation survey in front of me, a district elevation survey of the Chronomancer's Reach lower archive corridor, has, as they always do, exceeded the Commission's requirements. The cross-reference structural annotations alone run 3 pages past what was asked for. I know this. I do it anyway. By Arden, there will be an impression note in Warren Adess's precise handwriting that I have learned, over 7 years of receiving them, to translate as good, but more than asked for. I do not think this will ever stop being true of me, and I stopped feeling any urgency about that some time ago. Across the sectional divide, my 2 junior practitioners are doing what junior practitioners at the end of their training day do, the work that requires very little, in the hope that it will be noticed anyway. Braille, who took the other half of my Velund role from the communal cooling unit on his 3rd day, and, when confronted, stared wide-eyed and backed out of the building without speaking, is carefully transcribing completed survey tablets into the Circle's archive format, copying notation shorthand from impression wax into the record with a slow, deliberate hand. He left a second roll voucher for the Velund vendor 2 corridors away on my desk the following morning. No apology, just a voucher. I still appreciated it more than I was prepared to. He will finish the transcription by Arden if he maintains his pace. Miraven, the quieter of the 2, is at the practice table performing field thread calibration drills. She is on her 9th repetition of the same exercise. Her results have held consistent over the past 4 attempts, which means either her calibration is accurate and she is verifying carefully, or she has been making the same small error so steadily that it has become invisible to her. The frustration in her posture suggests the latter. She will figure it out. If not by Arden, I will tell her. Both of them look up when my field slate chimes. It is from Adess, and attached are other documents bearing a co-approval stamp from Solwyn. I tilt my head, curious. I have only seen a co-approval stamp once in 7 years here. It was on Neva Korath's assignment, visible only because Neva had come to my desk to ask about a location I had recently surveyed. Meet me in my office, WA. I mark the time in the elevation's margin. Arden, Velath, Solven, Carven. 4 working days, then a null day rest, and the week begins again. Today is the last day of the week. Whatever this is, it will carry into the next. I complete my current notes and leave. Adessa's office suits her. Small, spare, and without display. No ceremonial objects, no visible credentials. A plain desk, a practical chair, the circle's large, continuous map of the Undercity occupying the wall behind her, updated regularly, mostly in her handwriting, though a few notations are in hands I don't recognize. I have always wondered whether she keeps her back to it during meetings by design, or whether she has simply sat in this chair long enough that the map has become part of the wall. However, the office does not usually contain Thane Irios. He sits in the chair to the right of the desk, one leg crossed, a small red leather folio resting on his knee. He looks exactly as he does on Drossline broadcasts and the Leyline Rail platform advertisements, unhurried, well-dressed in a dark suit, whose cut announces itself from the doorway, carrying the stillness of someone who has long since stopped needing to orient himself in any room he enters. His features are even, his presentation immaculate. His voice, when he speaks, sits low and smooth in a register that belongs somewhere other than official business. I note the suit's quality and file it with everything else. My instinct is to hide my charcoal-stained hands. I redirect it awkwardly into the urge to straighten my jacket. I leave my hands where they are. Adesse sits behind her desk with a cup of dark water in front of her. She looks at me the way she always does, when she has already decided what she thinks, with the patience of someone who has no interest in rushing you toward a conclusion. She gestures to the open chair. I sit. Lewin, she says, this is Thane Irios, second to the 7th chair. We've met, I say. I know of him, which is different, but it is the most efficient response I can give. He extends his hand across the space between our chairs. I shake it. The grip is firm. His field impression registers as almost nothing, which is more notable than the grip itself. Through my Thalon expression, I should be able to read him. Element, depth, the shape of his practice pressed into the space around him. I cannot. He is either very good at containment or something stranger. I have rarely encountered someone who took up space in a room and left such minimal signs of their presence. Lewin Orveth, he says, I've been told you grew up in the Deep Maw Quarter. The Tangle specifically, I say. Something passes between him and Adesse, more than a glance but less than words, a confirmation of something they had settled before I arrived. Good, he says. Not the good of good fortune, the good of an exact fit. The distinction is not comforting. Adesse reaches across the desk and turns a survey folio toward me. A senior survey practitioner is needed, she explains. Site conditions requiring careful oversight, priority on the basement levels, and structural documentation throughout. Any anomalies I encounter are to be noted, but are not my primary responsibility. A second practitioner will manage those. She pauses, selects her words with the care she applies to everything she suspects will be contested. The previous survey practitioner encountered difficulties, Adesse concludes. Irios adjusts in his chair. The work didn't go as planned. Given the earlier complications, the client decided 2 practitioners would be better for this task. He looks at me. I need someone who can interpret spaces that refuse to be read, considering your experience with the Tangle. I understand what he means, and I don't miss the irony. 2 years of returning to the same problem. 2 years of the tangle refusing to resolve under my instruments, and the thing I couldn't solve has apparently become a credential. "Open the folio," he says, with the ease of someone accustomed to being a sentence ahead. I do. The first page outlines the commission, a classified survey of a private estate in the Tangle, Deep Maw Quarter, with priority on basement levels and comprehensive structural documentation. The estate is listed as the Morvain Estate, a name I don't recognize despite 2 years of surveying the quarter's geography and believing I have most of its locations accounted for. The notation at the top of the page is not the circle's standard discretion stamp. It is a compact court seal. The agreement backing this commission is not a typical confidentiality contract. I turn the page. The second practitioner's name is listed at the top of the assignment sheet in clear handwriting, Saga Verdrin. I read it twice, not because I misread it the first time, because the first reading was correct, and I am not yet sure what to do with that. Saga Verdrin, owner of Verdant Contracts and Chronicles in the Chronomancer's Reach, adopted daughter of Lyra Verdrin, appears in the Circle's orbit occasionally, attached to assignments that require field capacity and discretion in proportions the standard workforce doesn't carry. The precise nature of her field capacity remains a subject of ongoing disagreement among practitioners who track such matters. I have never had reason to meet her directly. It appears now that I do. I file it and turn the page. Terms of stay. Both practitioners will remain on site during the survey. They are assigned to the designated zone, the authorized wing adjacent to the library on the estate's upper level. Outside this wing, all work is to cease at sunset. Both practitioners must remain within the authorized zone from sunset to sunrise, without exception, for the full duration of the assignment. The estate will be stocked before arrival. The stay lasts 4 days, Arden through Carven. I read the sunset clause twice. Firnmere survey commissions include site hours, safety protocols, and field condition waivers. They do not include instructions about where I am permitted to be when the light changes, because the Undercity does not track the sun. The movements of a sky that sets have never in 7 years been a variable I needed to log. I turn the page. 7 deep crystals. I read the figure. I counted again without meaning to. 7 deep crystals is not survey pay. 7 deep crystals is the kind of number that settles the question of Drawspire rent without ceremony, that turns the field cold box I have been deciding about for 3 weeks into something I simply purchased. The merchant down the corridor who never remarks on my charcoal-stained hands, who takes my order and passes the dark water across without a glance at my fingers. I have been meaning to tip him properly for years. Half up front, Irios says, due to the site's specific nature. If you agree, you'll receive the first half tomorrow on Null Day. He says it lightly. The lightness doesn't reach his eyes, which I note the way I note the sunset clause and the compact court seal and Edessa's careful choice of the word complications. I am filing a great deal. I look at Edessa. She is holding her face very still, the way she does when she has an opinion she has decided needs to remain sealed. The crystal tender is real. So is the discomfort. I am a survey practitioner living in a transitional district on a modest salary, running a personal mapping project that costs more charcoal than it should. I grew up in the Tangle. I have spent 2 years failing to understand it. The thing that has resisted me is being handed back as the reason I belong on this commission, and I cannot decide whether that is luck or something else entirely, so I accept the commission anyway. Yes, I say. and press my field signature into the box beside my name. Excellent. Irios stands and extends his hand. I stay seated and shake it. The commission begins this Arden. Use Null Day to prepare. Food, drink, and field supplies. Everything you need will be at the site before you arrive. 4 days, fully provisioned. He turns to Ades. You'll send copies of the paperwork? A nod, nothing more. Good to meet you, Orveth. He moves past me to the door. Through the gap as it opens, I see the workspace beyond, and Brael and Miraven, who have each discovered an urgent reason to be standing approximately 3 meters from Ades's office for however long this took, performing corridor transit with the conviction of people who have not thought it through. Irios passes them without acknowledgement. The door closes. The office, with just the 2 of us in it, feels different. Ades lets the silence settle for a moment. Then she rises from her chair, reaches beneath the desk, and places a survey kit on top of the papers between us. She does this without preamble, the way she does most things, as if the action has already been decided, and the only remaining question is the timing. I recognize it immediately. The dented corner on the left side of the field thread case, a specific dent from a fall 6 years ago along the Portfall District's aquifer path. Neva had been explaining something she found genuinely interesting, which was most things, and gesturing to match, and the kit had slipped from under her arm before she registered it was still there. She had sworn, quietly, checked the calibration tool, confirmed that nothing essential was broken, and moved on, because that was Neva. You noted the damage, established whether it mattered, and continued. The kit belongs to Neva Korath. It should not be in this room. Neva Korath was the complication, Ades says. Her voice is lower and more careful than I have heard it from behind that desk. No one has seen her since this commission. The final sign-off was in handwriting that wasn't hers. She looks at the kit between us. I've logged it. I haven't reported it yet. I say nothing. I am looking at the dented corner, thinking about Neva's expression when the kit hit the path. Not alarm, not embarrassment. Only the quick inventory of consequences, and the decision that none of them were serious. I wanted to go myself, Ades says, but I have commitments I can't leave. She holds my attention, the specific quality of it when something is being offered, not required. I am trusting you to come back. I reach across the desk and take the kit. The dented corner fits into my hand the way it always did when Neva passed it. That particular weight and angle, the unspoken signal that her hands needed to be free to work. Something surfaces in my chest at the same moment, and I don't name it. I note it. I file it. And I move on. I'll come back, I say. Ades nods. She opens the center drawer of her desk, removes something, and holds it out. A necklace. The chain is dark metal, a silvery black that reads as older than its condition suggests, and I feel it before I hold it. A hum at my fingertips, less than a vibration, more than the absence of one. A ward property, woven into the links. The pendant is a teardrop of deep red stone, and a serpent is coiled around it, tail below and eyes set in chips of blue so dark they read as void until the light catches them. The whole piece is long enough that when I hold it at my collarbone, it rests at the center of my chest. It is beautiful in the way of things made to do something as well as to be looked at. You'll need that to reach the estate properly, Ades says. Don't take it off until you're out. Was Neva given one? Yes, she says, and offers nothing more. She sits. She picks up her dark water, She opens the folio. I note what she did not say alongside what she did, and I take the commission papers and leave. I spend the rest of my shift the way I always do, finishing what I started beyond what was required, a habit too old to examine and too consistent to change. The elevation survey is filed before I leave. The impression note that will be waiting on my field slate by Arden, whatever it says, will be accurate for the person who left today, and perhaps not for the one who returns. I find for once, I don't mind leaving it. At least it will be evidence that I made it back. The workspace dissolves around me as I pack up, giving way to the particular atmosphere of the end of a working day. Junior practitioners releasing the formal posture of active hours, finding gossip underneath. Most of them drift toward the survey wash sinks at the center of the office, reaching for the clear wash dispensers to strip the charcoal from their hands before they leave. Today's subject, carrying across the sinks in the registers people use when they have decided something is confidential and also cannot keep to themselves, is Thane Irios, his presence in the Luster Lane quarter. The voice he uses there, low, unhurried, entirely distinct from the one he brings to official business, was reported by people who had been in its vicinity and found it too significant not to share. The conversation has reached a register I had not known was permitted in a professional workspace. I watch them for a moment. The clear wash works quickly on standard charcoal residue. On mine, it does nothing. 7 years of survey work have pressed the pigment past the first layers of skin into something that functions less like a stain and more like a second surface. I have the tubes at home. I use them on evenings when I feel the particular manageable discomfort of knowing the difference between having charcoal on my hands and being someone whose hands are simply this color now. Most evenings I do not bother. I decide, as I always do, not to bother. I pick up my bag and leave the sinks to the people they still help, and the gossip to the conclusion I suspect will take some time to reach. The air beyond the threshold carries dark water and the smell of the vendor's crevel from the stall at the corridor's end, the smell arriving before the stall is visible. They sit in the warm hold in rows, round and glossed with a sugar glaze that darkens at the edges where the heat has caught them, each one skewered through the center on a thin stick so they can be carried and eaten without breaking stride. The glaze is still tacky when they are fresh. I buy one every carven on the way home. 7 years of the same route. The stall, a purchase in hand, the walk to the kelp drawn, the scholars' line to Grand Station, the spine south to Drawspire. I tip the merchant and thank him, and mean it. On the transfer at Grand Station, where concourse noise arrives as pressure before it arrives as sound, I think about Neva, about the dented corner of the kit and the handwriting that wasn't hers on the final sign-off. And I think about a name Neva mentioned more than once, always with the brevity of someone who decides, mid-sentence, not to continue. Crimsyn Vault, a senior survey delver with the Delver's Compact, which is to say someone with sanctioned access to the deep roads and the institutional authority to go where most practitioners are not permitted. Neva said her field record showed visits to 3 unmapped locations, none of them filed or explained. For a practitioner with standard clearance, that would be an irregularity. For someone at Crimsyn's level, it is something else entirely. The kind of omission that should have prompted a formal inquiry and, as far as I have been able to determine, did not. I wonder now whether the secrecy of this assignment reminded Neva of Crimsyn, whether that was part of why she took it. Neva had a particular talent for speaking freely and then catching herself mid-sentence. the way someone reaches for something and thinks better of it. She would offer a name, a detail, the edge of something larger, and then stop. I never pushed. I decided it was not my business. I am only now understanding what not asking costs. I find myself thinking of the way she would stop, the exact moment, always the same. A breath held a beat too long, and then the subject changed. I noticed it each time and said nothing. I told myself there would be other conversations, and that the things I had not yet said could wait, that she knew without my saying that I was listening in a way that went beyond the work. In reality, she may not have known, and I did not say. That is what I am left with. The weight of that has left a kit sitting wrong in my bag. That is what the wrong handwriting means. That is what I am actually measuring when I turn these facts over. Not the assignment, not press and vault, not the 3 unmapped locations. I am measuring the distance between what I said and what I did not, and finding it now very large. All I know for certain is that I am going to find out what happened to Neva. I board the spine southbound and give myself something practical to think about. 4 stops to Drosspire, the Sunset Clause. I think about Saga Verdran, the name I read twice in a commission folio, the silhouette I have glimpsed moving through the circle, always toward Odessa's office, and the reputation that consistently exceeds the formal assessment records. The kind of practitioner who notices things before they announce themselves. I am not sure yet what it means that this commission requires both of us. I think, briefly and against my better judgment, about whether I am making a mistake. Regardless, I have pressed my field signature. The question is interesting, and also beside the point. The tunnel walls shift warmer as Drosspire approaches, the surface's influence on the mineral content of the stone, the way the district announces itself in the rock before it announces itself in the light. Drosspire has never fully committed to being underground, and the geology reflects it. I watch the walls change and think about nothing in particular, which is the nearest I get, on Carven evenings, to rest. The transition canopy shows gray when I arrive, the same as when I left at dawn. I stand in it for a moment before going inside. The gray is consistent. I have spent today signing my name to things I do not fully understand. It is good, at the end of it, to stand under a sky that asks nothing of me. The Closed Sky is an original dark fantasy audio series by LeonaCrimsyn. If you want to know what happens next, subscribe and come back when the next part drops. Thanks for listening. Until next time.